So welcome to session 5 of the Young Innovator Workshops, hosted by Mr. Bill Murray. All right, Bill, I think we are ready to go. So if you would like to introduce yourself, and then we can have everyone introduce themselves real quick and we can get moving.
Yeah, well, thank you. I've got an exciting topic this morning. I'm Bill Murray. My days are spent working for big insurance companies, helping them drive innovation and innovative uh, behaviors in their employees. And when I'm not doing that, I'm doing stuff like this, helping entrepreneurs around the world to validate ideas and use their precious resources only on the best ideas and the best opportunities. So something that really drives me. So um, let's learn a little bit about you. Zizou, tell us a little about yourself.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me right? Is
Yeah,
there any background noise? I'm sorry.
no, you sound great.
Okay, thank you. So, I'm Ziza Salting. I'm 16 years old. I'm from the Philippines, and I am working on a project called the Codex Lingua, which is a tablet essentially designed to help language learners, specifically those of languages that use the non-Latin alphabet, meaning letters that are not A, B, C, D. For example, Korean or Japanese alphabets.
Mhm.
So I started working on this project, I think around August of last year, because it was part of a competition, and I really feel connected to languages because it was a big part of my childhood since I speak both English and just a little bit of Tagalog, which is Filipino. So I wanted to make a product which could help those who are also interested in languages like me and who have grown up around it and formed that kind of emotional connection with it in the same way I have. Thank
Fantastic.
you.
Thank you. Great elevator pitch. Latika, let's hear about you.
Hi, I'm Latika. I'm 16 and I'm in Irving, Texas. So the problem me and Sanvi are trying to solve is the urban heat island effect. And basically, it's when the urban areas are warmer than the rural areas because like the surfaces reflect more heat off. And we made shade seekers to solve it because Sanvi Chilaveru experienced it in Copwell Color Guard, where her classes got canceled, and they had to reschedule because the temperatures got too warm in the summer when they were doing band camp, and also there's multiple people in Texas that also experience this problem. So we've been trying to solve it by planting having tree planting workshops and rooftop gardening stuff, and we still have to have those workshops.
Fantastic. Sanjay, let's hear about you.
My name is Sanjay. I'm 13 years old and I live in South Windsor. And the project that I'm working on is something called Tic Tac Toe Track. And what it does is it helps mild cerebral palsy people to walk normally. So because of mild cerebral palsy, they have like spasticity in their legs. Because of that, they have a hard time walking normally, which forces them to walk in abnormal ways. So my project, I'm trying to help to solve that problem.
Fantastic. All three have really great elevator pitches. That's really great. You know, it's amazing how many people in situations like you just don't. I mean, when they get put on the spot and they're asked to tell someone about what they do, they don't have anything prepared. But all three of you obviously are very well prepared for that. So, fantastic. Being able to tell a great story is the first step, and being able to get other people to work with you. So, nice job. Um, so this week we're going to be talking about developing your product or service. And this is probably the fun one for most people. Yeah, that's the thing we want to do. We want to go out and build something. So there's a little bit more to it than that. But we'll take a quick step back first and talk about where we were last week. Last week, we talked about funding and resources, about the different types of funding you can get, from bootstrapping, which is spending your own money, all the way to venture capital, which is spending some California fat cats money, and everything in between. We talked about how to get yourself funding ready, which the first step is having a great elevator pitch. All of you are already there. Fantastic. how to attract interest, how to build a network of people that might be able to bring the type of interest in that might lead to you getting the funding or the resources or whatever it is that you need to keep moving forward. And then also being realistic about what's important. And that one was where people think about their intellectual property, their thing that they've invented, that they guard it so carefully that that no one ever gets to see it, including potentially their customer. And my point last week was that it's not your intellectual property that's the most valuable thing to you, because anybody can steal that. And they do nowadays. The thing that they'll make you different than everybody else is you and your team, and how great you are at bringing that to market and getting that to your customers. So that's actually a good thing, because that's something you can control. So on our pirate map, anybody remember the pirate map? Hi, Sanvi, welcome. So we started at mindset. You can, Julie, you can see my screen, right?
I can.
Okay, I don't want this to be another one of those embarrassing situations where I go on for 10 minutes and somebody says, "Are you trying to share something with us?" Yeah, I was, and it wasn't successful. So we start with our mindset. That was the first week. Then we identified great business opportunities to kind of validate them. Then we talked about business plans and how important they are or aren't, depending on where you are, and how to use things like the business model canvas and the lean canvas instead. Then last week, it was all about teams and resources, getting the resources you need to keep moving. And then today, we are developing and scaling your product. So very, very exciting. Did I spend that wrong? No, well, it looks all right. Okay. And then next week could be our last week together, at least for this round, and we'll talk about sales and marketing. So, but to get to that point, we have to have a scaled product. So let's find out what's next. So we're going to talk about the iterative process. Iterative means over and over again in cycles. We're talking about the customer's role in that process. We'll talk about prototyping, MVPs. You may have seen or heard the word MVP before, and it's not most valuable player. It's a little bit something different, minimum viable product. We'll talk about that. And especially we'll talk about behavioral experimentation, which is my favorite thing to do. And then we'll touch a little bit on the end on scaling, how to cross the chasm. That's a bit of jargon from the name of a book called Crossing the Chasm. Might be something you might want to read, or at least take a look at, or at least go to the Wikipedia entry and get kind of the overview to understand it. So this looks really complicated, but it really isn't. But this is sort of the design thinking path. So when you're trying to design something, design new value for some type of customer, you follow the path that's followed on this particular graphic. I'm not going to go too much into it now, but what we're going to be doing is we're going to be on the right side of that. We've brainstormed up types of, we were on the left side, we validate an idea, and on the right side of this graph, we actually turn it into something that's tangible, that the customer can interact with and react to, and then we go back and forth on this right side of the graph here. We're going to go back and forth between creating and realizing. So that's what we're going to do. So let's talk about that iterative process. The iterative process is the thing, you iterate, you go over and over again. You do something, you make a change, and you do it again. So it's plan, do, check, and adjust is something they use actually in the lean world, where they talk about process improvements, but it works just the same here. You plan, hey, this is what I think the customer is going to find valuable based on what we believe. You build something, and we'll talk about the different levels of things you can build, and you check it, see how the customer reacted to it, and then you make an adjustment based on that. And those adjustments could be iterating, just trying the same thing again and eliminating maybe a variable that kept the customer from enjoying it. You can pivot, which means you can say, hey, I missed something here. I either have the wrong product, the wrong customer, or the wrong problem. And you kind of go back, kind of like Monopoly. You go to jail, go directly to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. I don't know. Does anybody play Monopoly anymore? Maybe. Okay, good. Or you stop. You say, there is nothing here. And spending one more day on this would waste valuable money, time, something that I have in short supply. So So this graph is really fun. I love this graph because it shows the granularity of your prototype. I use the word fidelity, but it's complexity. How complex a thing do you need to build? And that's on the y-axis, the one going up and down. The x-axis is your progress. It's time. So at the beginning of time, kind of by the little light bulb in the lower left-hand corner of that graph, you don't have a lot of evidence yet. You've talked to some customers, and some customers have said that they want something or that they need something or this is important to them, but you haven't actually seen them do anything yet to prove that what they say is actually what they'll do. And we talked about this a few weeks ago, the say-do gap. People say, yeah, I'd buy that. And then you show it to them and they say, well, I don't know, maybe next week. And again, it's not because people are bad or they're liars or something like that. It's just that when it actually comes time to do something, and especially to pay something, even if it's not money, it might just be time or something like that, it becomes a much bigger decision and it gets more complicated. So at the beginning there by the light bulb, you don't have a lot of evidence yet. So your granularity has to be very small too. The first thing you want to show your customer is something that's very quick to build and doesn't cost you anything so that your risk is very low. So once you have that valid idea, customer problem, put your insights to work. Remember, the insights are the things that you come up with when you watch your customers and you talk to them. They answer your questions. You ask more questions, and you put all that together and you stir it up. And out of that comes some new beliefs. Oh, I see. This is happening to the customer because. And the customer usually doesn't tell you the because part because they don't even realize it themselves. It's up to you to discover it, kind of like a detective. And the second point there, the fidelity, that's the complexity, the cost of the initial version of your product should reflect the level of knowledge you have, which is very little. You don't really know anything. You have some beliefs. You have to start to prove them out or not prove them out. So let's see what's on the next one here. Yeah, so at the beginning, some of those initial experiments, those initial products might be a drawing. Maybe you use an AI program to draw you a picture of the thing that you think that you want to build for the customer. And then you print it on a piece of paper and you hand it to your customer. You say, here you go. Will this help you? They might say yes, or they might say no, or they might say, I'm not sure. But in that moment, you can interview them about it. You can ask them about, well, what do you like about what you're seeing here on this piece of paper? What don't you like? What would you change? And then that allows you to come back, draw it again, and maybe come back with a different picture, and then see how they react to it. And so, what's the cost of drawing a picture and printing it? Anybody know? What's the cost of that? How much does that cost in US dollars? Anybody? How much is a piece of paper?
Here in the Philippines, around a stack of papers around I think 100 pesos, which could be, I think that's like 50 cents in America, if I'm right. Which is
So
a stack of paper.
so your one piece of paper cost half a cent.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, is that expensive? Anybody? Would you worry about half a cent?
No.
Only thing I worry about is how do I cut the penny in half? That's the only thing I'd worry about. So you could go out and do experiments like that, and you don't have to worry about anything. Don't worry if the customer doesn't like it. As a matter of fact, if the customer looks at your picture and says, I hate this, this is terrible, you don't know me at all, that's great. It's time to celebrate because you got the customer to get emotional about the thing you thought they might like. And in that moment, you can ask them all kinds of questions. Hey, that's great. Tell me more about why you don't like this so much. What's the thing you hate the most about it? Because that then tells you what not to do next time around. It's when somebody looks at something and they go, it's okay. I don't know what to do at that point because there's nothing there for me to take a next step on. So I have to show the customer something they either love or hate because those are the things that get people to talk. So sometimes I've worked with teams where they've actually intentionally shown the customer something that they knew was wrong, just to get the customer riled up, get them to say, oh, this is terrible. You didn't listen to me at all. And in that moment, then they start going off and and they talk about things they didn't even talk about in the interview. And the team learns these really, really cool things. So it's okay to accidentally show the customer something wrong because it'll get them going. And that's what you want. You want the customer to tell you lots of things about something you show them. Once you get done with a piece of paper, and the other way to do this, we'll talk about some of these other things in a second. So let's go to this one. So the customer's role. So as I've been kind of implying here, if you let the customer help them, they will, especially that early adopter customer, the person who's really got that problem that you're trying to solve, and they're really trying to solve it. That they desperately want to solve it. But for you, it's important as you're working with customers in this process, this iterative process, to kind of separate wants and needs. And what's interesting about this is customers will tell you what they want, but they'll only tell you what they want in the context of what they know. So there's an old saying, and it's not true, but they said that Henry Ford, the inventor of the not the inventor of the automobile, but the person who really brought the automobile to the American consumer through mass production, said if you asked the customer what they wanted, they would say faster horses. Now that actually didn't happen, but it's true, because if you ask a customer what they want, I want a faster horse. They won't say they want a car if they've never seen a car before. So understand, the customer will say, yeah, I need a better computer. But actually, they don't need a better computer. They just need a digital assistant, or they need an AI assistant or something. You know about all the possibilities. They don't. So your job with them is to take, okay, what are they telling me when they say they want a faster horse? They're saying they need, they need what they have now, but better, cheaper, faster, smarter. And so then for you to be able to do that, then that's disruption. You may have heard this word disruption before. Disruption is where you take an existing system, an existing product, and you change it so radically that it changes how people think about it. Like Uber was a disruption for the taxi industry. Before Uber, taxis, you called on the phone and maybe a taxi come to your house in an hour or so, and then they take you somewhere, and that was it. With Uber, you got on your phone, you pushed a button, the taxi, a person in their car who wasn't really a taxi driver, but they were just trying to earn some money, they came to you and they took you where you wanted, and then you could call them again later on. You could get them on the app again later on. So if you just meet the customer's wants, you're gonna be mediocre, and you're never really going to do that amazing thing. If you translate their wants into needs, hey, what the customer is saying is they need something that will blank. What is that blank? That's disruption. So as you're working with your customers, and when you have your insights, your beliefs, you want to start listing out what your risky assumptions are. And risky assumptions are behaviors that the customer has to engage in for you to be able to connect them with what it is you're trying to create. And so the riskiest assumption usually is customer will seek help. When I'm working with teams, they say, well, we're not sure what our riskiest assumption is. Well, usually the riskiest one is the customer will bother to try to solve their problem. Some customers, they've given up, or it's just not that big of a problem for them. They're not going to waste their time or their money. So you need to figure out is, hey, if we show the customer something, will they actually take a step towards using it? Will they appreciate it? Will they tell us how it could get better? So other assumptions might be, hey, customer will download an app. Customer will share a problem they have with someone. Something like that. They're always behaviors. Customer will blank. That's how you write them out. So as you're thinking about the thing you're trying to build for your customer, what is it that they have to do to be able to connect with it? Customer will pay. Customer will call the phone number after they open up the box for help assembling it. All those types of things. Because if the customer won't do that, then you won't be able to create value for them, and you won't be able to keep moving forward. So we talked about your first prototypes, your first versions of your product. They won't exist. There'll be a picture. There'll be something that they might be able to look at, or something even that you just describe. May not even be a picture. Hey, I'm building a thing that does this, and it's got this. What do you think? But being able to do that gives you a chance to run a behavioral experiment. Then can we get the customer to do those behaviors that we talked about in the risky assumptions? So a customer will ask for help. Well, if we show them this thing, they'll ask for help because we know the problem is very, very important to them. And that's the behavioral experiment you see right here. That's a hypothesis that I have in that first bullet point under the second to last one there. If I do X, the customer will do Y for reason Z. So if I do this thing, if I offer the customer this thing, if I hand them this thing, the customer will do blank with it, or they will do blank as a result. They will behave in a certain way. They'll solve their problem. They'll pay me. They'll ask for help. They'll do all these various things because, and that's that reason is our because. It's that insight. It's that thing that we believe. Hey, this is happening because of that, and that's what we want to be able to connect to. We want to connect to that emotional reason the customer has to solve their problem. And again, test emotional behaviors, not preferences or interest. Understand where your customer's emotions are and then get them to act on those emotions, because that'll be the fastest way to find out if they're willing to do something. And then I mentioned MVP before. MVP in this context stands for minimum viable product. This is a kind of a jargon word that came out in the last 25 years or so. But really at the end of the day, an MVP, minimum viable product, is the simplest thing that you can build to test that riskiest assumption. If your riskiest assumption starts out, the first one is customer will ask for help, then you want to tee up something to the customer, give them something that you believe that will get them to get help from you. If you give them a web address, hey, click this link if you have this problem. If they don't click it, then that particular hypothesis has failed, and you have to figure out why. Hey, I sent you that link. I saw that you hadn't gone to the link. Can you tell me why? That's how you talk to your customer. That's the iterative process. All right. So types of experiments. This is where it gets really fun. I love experimenting on people. Nobody gets hurt. It's okay. It's nothing inhumane here. The first one, though, is called 404 test. Does anybody know what 404 refers to? Any web people here?
It's like where it's like the website isn't found.
Exactly. Yes. If you type in a web page that goes to a dead page, it doesn't exist, you get this thing that says 404. Couldn't find this page on Google. I think they show a little broken robot or something. They make it kind of fun. A 404 test is where you actually set up a real web page and you send people a link to go to your web page to purchase your product. And when they click on the web page, it comes to a real page, and it might say, click your state, click your country, or something like that. Where do you live? And they'll pick Wisconsin, where I live, for instance. And then it'll say, click here to buy. And they click to buy, and then a page comes and says, sorry, the product's not currently available in your state. Please type in your email address to get on our beta tester list, our early customer list. And you might say, well, that doesn't sound good. That sounds bad. Actually, it's really good because what you're doing is you're testing to see if the customer will click buy. And you're able to do it without ever having to build anything. You've got a picture on the web page. Here it is. Where are you from? Click to buy. Oh, sorry, it's not available in your area. And then you test to see if they're willing to give you an email address. Now, some entrepreneurs will take it one step further. I'll ask for them for a deposit, $20. Will you give us $20? Will you give us 2,000 pesos? To be on our waiting list. That's even better. Now that's something maybe adults should do. Maybe just work with an adult if you do something like that. But it's a great way to test to see how willing someone is to actually buy something. And then that gives you what you need to build the next higher level of product. So that one's really fun. The concierge test is another type of experiment where you kind of put everything out on a platter. A concierge is a person at a hotel that you might go to. There's a man or a woman behind the desk, and their job is to do whatever it takes to make that hotel guest happy. And so you go up to that person, you say, I need a reservation to this restaurant. And they know people, and they can get you a reservation, or they can get you a car, or whatever it is that you need to get. And so the concierge test is kind of taking what you know about the customer, what they need, and putting it on a platter for them and seeing if they'll actually, once it's on the platter, it gets very easy. See, concierge is all about making it easy for you. Hey, if I make it easy, the customer will take it. So that's a concierge experiment. That may not be the final version of what your product looks like, but it tests to see, hey, if I make it easy, can the customer accomplish this? And that's a really fun one too, because you get to really interact with the customer too. The Mechanical Turk or Wizard of Oz test is one where it looks like something is automated and technical, but it's actually you behind the curtain, like the Wizard of Oz, pulling all the levers and turning all the cranks and pushing all the buttons. So you might have a web page where they put in some information and it generates them a personalized, like a dating website. You put in your name and your address and stuff, and then it'll give you the names of 3 people that might be good dates for you to go out on a date with. Well, in a Mechanical Turk or Wizard of Oz test, I would be behind the scenes watching people on my website. They'd put in their name and they'd hit submit. I'd quickly get the information, and then I would copy and paste 3 names of people and hit send, and it would look like the computer thought about it and sent them the 3 names. So it's a way of simulating an automated experience without having to pay the cost of paying a developer, a programmer to build all that back end for you. Now, would a test like that work for 100 customers at once? Anybody? What would happen if 100 customers got on your website? What do you think might happen?
Some of them would get left hanging. They won't get a response.
It'd be a disaster for 99 of those 100 people, because they'd be sitting there and say, I'm putting all my information, nothing's there. So we actually did this once, a group that I was with, they wanted to test a chatbot, and they were going to spend $15,000 on a chatbot for 4 hours to test on a morning with some people to test to see if they'd use the chatbot to get information. And I said, well, why don't we, if we're just going to test it with a few dozen people, why don't we just do it this way? And I said, send them the phone number to your cell phone and send them and say, hey, if you text a question to this phone number, within 2 minutes, you'll get a response from our AI chatbot. Well, actually, it was just a guy named Bob, but he was really, really smart. He knew all the answers to all the questions we get. So he was on his phone going crazy. I think he broke both thumbs, or he got carpal tunnel disease or something at the end of the morning, but he was going nuts, and he was able to get to everybody within 2 minutes, quick answers. And we were able to test to see if these people would actually use it. And they did. And they came back for a second and a third time sometimes. And they did other stuff like ask it, what's the weather today? That wasn't what they were supposed to ask. But we learned that these people were testing it and that they were really interested in it and they wanted it. So instead of spending $15,000, we just wrecked Bob's thumbs, which was a lot cheaper because he was covered on his medical anyway. So we were able to do it, and we were able to do it really quickly. And so then they had the confidence to go and do something that was a little bit more expensive, because they could show that, hey, people want this. All 25 of the people we sent it to actually asked a question, and 10 of them asked a second and a third question. So that's the Mechanical Turk. Imposter Judo. This one's interesting too, where you take an existing product, you take the label off of it, and you put your label on it, and you give it to the customer, and you let them use it, and you have them tell you about their use of it. So if you're developing something that's somewhat similar to something else that's out there, you get that other thing that already exists, you give it to the customer, and then you talk to them each day or a couple times a day. Hey, how did you use this? What did you do? What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? Because then that'll tell you what your version of that product needs to be. And you'll discover what the gaps are in the existing products that are out there. Finally, the last one is one that I do with the people that I'm working with. So when I'm working with an entrepreneur and they're getting kind of stuck and maybe too stuck on building instead of learning, I'll tell them, I say, look, I'm not going to help you anymore until you go out with the product that you have right now, the version that you have, and go make $100. And I make them go out in the community, find people that would be interested, and try to make $100. And I say, don't come back until you have $100. And then we're able to have a conversation. Okay, what happened? What didn't happen? What did you learn? And usually it gets them unstuck, because they get very, very candid feedback from their customers, and they're able to get unstuck from where they were, because they thought it had to look a certain way. But when you actually go out and ask for some money, people get very candid with you when you ask for money. I'm not paying for that. Oh, tell me why. Oh, because of this and this and this. Oh, wow, I had no idea. So asking for money is really important, or time, or whatever it is that you might be asking for in what it is that you're doing, and asking early on. Because if if your early adopter customer, that person that has the biggest version of the problem, isn't willing to support you early on, they're not going to help you later on either. So answering that question early will help you understand what it is that's valuable to people and what isn't. And you know, it can be frustrating, but the most frustrating thing is keeping going on and on and on when you shouldn't have. When the customers were actually telling you no early on. One of my sayings that I say to the teams I work with is, if the customer says no, believe them, but also ask them why. Tell me, yeah, no, fantastic. Thanks for telling me no. Tell me why. Tell me what else. Tell me the other thing. Tell me the last time that you solved this problem. What did you do then? All those sort of things will help you to be able to make that pivot that we talked about, or that iteration. All right. Last but not least, scaling. Scaling is going from that mechanical Turk where you can only talk to one person on the web page at once to the point where you can have 100 people on your dating website at once, and they can all get dates automatically and that sort of thing. So this is that crossing the chasm thing. So you'll want to look that up. Just go to Wikipedia and look at the and you can look at other people's comments about the book. If you really like reading, that's fine too. It's kind of a long read, and I think some of the other online things will help you get to the point. But it's well written. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. But the chasm is the spot between where your early adopter is on the adoption curve of different types of customers and where your early majority is. So that early adopter is the person that's got a really intense version of the problem. They really want to solve it. The early majority, they've got the problem too, but they're a little nervous about doing anything. That early adopter, they need lots of 5-star Google reviews before they're going to buy something. Like last night, I was looking to buy a radio. I wanted to buy a radio for my office just to listen to the radio during the day. And I was looking through. Some of them look good, but they didn't have a lot of reviews. So I didn't buy it because I'm not going to buy, there's certain things I want in a radio. I know it sounds old fashioned, but I still like listening to the radio. There's certain things I want in the radio. I want to make sure that it works and that it gets reception indoors. And if I don't know those things, I'm not going to buy it. Even though I need a radio, I'm not going to buy one without that. So I'm like an early majority person. So this step is where you move from product innovation, like iterating on your product. And this is where you move now to marketing innovation. This is where you iterate on your marketing. We'll talk about marketing next week, but it goes from, okay, we've got our product now and we know it works and we know that it's the right product. How do we now become more innovative in how we engage potential customers with it, how we get them to it, and how we show them that it's the solution that they need and will solve their problem. So that's sort of a transition that happens there before and after that kind of that thick black line there. So that'll kind of lead us into next week. So that's kind of the program. What thoughts or feedback or questions do you have? Yeah, Zizu, please. Make sure you're on.
I
There you go.
just wanted to say that I also remembered another experience that me
Cool.
and Lolo, my grandfather, on my mom's side actually had, because when we came back from the Bahamas, which is where I used to live when I was younger, that was
Mhm.
2 years ago. My brother and I were like trying to figure out our way through online shopping because they didn't really have much of that back in the Bahamas.
Ah,
So what my grandfather, or lolo as we call him here in the Philippines, what my lolo taught us was that if the product doesn't have a lot of reviews, don't buy it, because you don't know what you're getting when you buy a product with like no reviews. And then I'm also sometimes suspicious because a lot of the products here have only like one 5-star review, which gets me suspicious because I start thinking it's a bot that they asked to rate their product.
yep.
But yeah, I'm just glad that you were able to put it in perspective so I can see how my experience as a customer can help me in my experience as a entrepreneur. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And sometimes it goes beyond the 5-star reviews. They want to see customer videos. They want to see, they want to see the customer talking about it because, again, so many reviews are fake nowadays. So how do we know which ones are fake? Well, a video is a lot more powerful. So can you get your customer, and this is taking your customer from satisfied, which is, hey, this product met my needs, to the next step, which is passionate. hey, I love this product and I want everyone I know to have it too. How do you do that? Well, you work with your customers to get them up to that point where they're willing to do a review, where they're willing to do a video, where they're willing to actually help you. That's what you want to do in your marketing. We'll talk about that next week. How do you optimize your marketing to get people to passionate, not just satisfied. Satisfied's fine, and maybe they'll come back again, but they aren't going to tell anybody. So marketing is expensive when you have to keep buying customers. Marketing gets cheap when you create people that will go out and get you customers for free. That's called the engine of growth. The engine of growth is not by you marketing, it's by your customers marketing. And that's when you know you've built something that's really, really helping people, because they can't imagine anybody they know not living without it. Sanjay, Latika, Sanvi, any thoughts, feedback, thoughts, stories that you have? Cool. Oh yeah, Sanvi?
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
No.
I think thank you so much for sharing more about your experience and also just your knowledge on the different products and how you can really reach customers. I think I definitely did not know that you could offer your product in different ways to see if customers would actually buy in. I think you said the concierge where you offer it on a platter. I think
Yep.
that was really cool, and I never really thought of it in that way, that you could give it to them and see how they might how if they would want to support your product or buy it. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I think this was a great call, and I really appreciate how you dived more into that.
Thank you. Yeah, I love the concierge test, because it allows you to test how easy do I have to make it for my customer to act. And it solves that problem for you. That initial risky assumption, customer will accept help or customer will seek out help. Okay, if I'm going to put it on a platter and all they have to do is pick it up. And then I can also test to see which thing do they pick up off the platter. I can put 3 or 4 things on the platter, kind of almost like dinner. I've got 4 different appetizers on the platter. Did they pick the salmon puff? Did they pick the stuffed mushroom? Did they pick the shrimp? Which one do they want? And that also tells me things. Hey, I see you picked the stuffed mushroom. Why'd you pick the stuffed mushroom? And then you'll learn. And then that sometimes allows you to narrow what you're offering too, which is a big help. Because that saves you a lot of time and money and other resources. If you don't have to offer 4 things, you only have to offer 1. That's great for you, and it's a great learning, and it's a cheap way to learn. Cool. Anybody else? Otherwise, I know we're over time. I don't want to keep anybody from their Saturday morning activities, or sorry, Zizu, Saturday evening. Sunday morning for you almost. Cool. Well, thank you. Julie, take it away.
Great session. Thanks, Bill, as always, and we look forward to next week. And I hope all of you will join us again next week for the final workshop of this round, as Bill said, because I think we might be doing some things in the future with him too. So have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye
Have a good week.
bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.